my live audience, because I'm having to do this both live and over call. I think I got my sister. I'm going to start this speech by stating a small collection of facts and truths. They'll make a lot more sense as the speech goes on. The Geneva Convention outlaws the attacking, harming, or assaulting of medical personnel for any reason. But in gaming, much like in real life, no one pays attention to this rule for the same reason. It is easier to win a battle if your enemy is incapable or unwilling to set up facilities to keep their troops in fighting shape. With that out of the way, today I'll be explaining to you the hows and whys of playing a medic in an online game. Before we get to that, you must first understand how you play your game. Most modern games have a tutorial that either starts when you boot it up, or you can easily access from the start screen. Moving on to with the introductory tutorial out of the way, moving on to the specialized course part, there are skills that correlate from playing a medic in most online games. These skills are triage, logistics, battlefield awareness/communication, and comprehension of the map and the game's movement mechanics. In the context of the game, much similar to real life, triage is the process of identifying patients and personnel that need the most healing right now to keep alive, and those you can put off healing, and those that, at this point, would just be a waste. Logistics in the context of a game, using TF2 as an example, also known as Team Fortress 2, as the medic, it is up to you to heal your team to keep them alive. You need to identify which piece of equipment to use and where the health kits are to keep you alive so you can deliver more healing. In the context of something like Space Station 13, which is a more complex version of the game Werewolf or Mafia, it is actually keeping the supplies for the types of injuries you'll be encountering. Either way, you need to understand how the healing mechanic works to have the right equipment equipped. As for communication and battlefield awareness, it's quite self-explanatory. It's knowing where they are on the map, where the damage is, where the fighting is, and what equipment you need to bring. In the case of TF2, it's talking with your team to determine if you need the quick fix or the vanilla, either an involuntary with a slow heal or a fast heal with an accelerated heal as its ult. Well, in something like SS13, it is the process of determining if you need burn treatments, bruising medication, bandages, painkillers, stuff like that. Well, in the case of getting around the map, it is referring to, quite obviously, figuring out how the map works, finding the paths, avoiding the enemy, and getting to the objective. I actually have, as I've printed out for my live audience who's in the same room as me, example maps. Let me, get this on the screen for you two in the video call. I have a map of, go away. A map of Dust Bowl, which should be the first map on the top. Much like any other class when you're playing this, you need to figure out effectively where the enemy is to be so you can avoid him. So if you spawn on this side, you can either go around here, but be exposed to what on the paper and on here is attributed by the line with the straight line with the two vertical lines, the likely area of a sniper's line of sight. With X's being health kits, you need to know where those are so you can stay in, and where to move to minimize your exposure to the enemy to get to the front. Similar thing on this, but this is a case of, do you take the tunnels or do you move to the front? On the Dust Bowl example, which is number 2, the first one's actually Harvest. With the most complex example, and I'm sorry it's just as bad in the printout and for me, is, I think I can actually just do that, a Space Station 13 map. As the healer, you start over here is where your main equipment is. There's a first aid station here, but due to the fact it's like a game of Werewolf and you lose parts of the station and the personnel as it goes on, you could entirely lose access to one part and have to move to a different area and work with the crew to get the equipment moved. And you need to know how to move around the map to get from point A to point B. These are pretty much all the examples I have from the maps. It should be the rather awkward looking one at the end for the live audience in the room. To recap, when you're playing as a team's medic and it's an online game, you need to identify where the healing is needed most, hence the triage, what equipment to use, logistics, and stay in communication to keep up with how the battle is flowing. But most importantly, know how the movement mechanics work so you can avoid being a strain on your team by not being there when they need you. Also, for a fun point, I was kind of wrong about the beginning part of the Geneva Convention. It does allow the attacking medical personnel if they defend themselves. So, if you ever find yourself playing a medic, just remember, if you don't defend yourself, at least then you can complain they're violating the Geneva Convention. Hope you all have a nice night.